Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video. As we are in the middle of spoiler season for Duskmourn, I was looking over a few cards, and in this video I simply want to share my thoughts about those and what we might expect from those cards. One of the cards that I want to talk about is Disturbing Mirth, a 2-mana enchantment, and when it enters you may sacrifice another enchantment or creature, and if you do you draw 2 cards. When you sacrifice Disturbing Mirth you manifest Dread, which means that you look at the top 2 cards of your library and you put one of them face down onto the battlefield as a 2/2 creature and the other one into your graveyard. If the face down card is a creature card, you can turn it face up by paying its mana cost. The turning up can happen instant speed, but it isn't a cast trigger. A deck that came immediately to my mind when playing this card is the Rottenmouth Viper deck, where one of your most common plays on turn 1 is either the Spiteful Hexmage or the Hopeless Nightmare. Both of these cards are either a creature or an enchantment, and the Spiteful Hexmage also creates an enchantment, which means that you automatically enable all of the things that you need for Disturbing Mirth to sacrifice into. This will turn Disturbing Mirth into a solid draw 2 card on your turn 2 play, and due to the fact that Disturbing Mirth doesn't have an inbuilt sacrifice outlet, it has a really high synergy with the Rottenmouth Viper, where we can sacrifice non-land permanents into to discount it as a spell. And in addition to that, due to the Dread mechanic, when sacrificing the Disturbing Mirth you will put another 2/2 onto the battlefield, which might be relevant for your turn 4 play, as you will have enough sacrifice fodder for another Rottenmouth Viper, which can definitely accelerate this deck. Drawing cards have never been a bad thing in Magic the Gathering, and I do really see Disturbing Mirth in this deck, simply because you will need ways to sacrifice the Disturbing Mirth to get the Dread mechanic, and Rottenmouth Viper simply helps with that. Another deck idea that I have includes the Patchwork Beastie, a 1-mana 3/3 with Delirium, and it can't attack or block unless there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep you may mill a card. First of all, I think it is worth mentioning that it is an artifact creature, so one of the current standard removals, Go for the Throat, doesn't affect this creature, and its inbuilt mill mechanic can definitely help to accelerate your game plan. Your next turn 2 play is going to be Say Its Name, a 2-mana sorcery, and you mill 3 cards. Then you may return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. Furthermore, you can exile this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard. If you do so, search your library, hand and or library for a creature named Altarnak, the Thrice Called, and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it, and you can only do this at sorcery speed. Now I do have to feature Altarnak, the Thrice Called, a 7-mana 9/9 with Trample, and when it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card. You can also pay 2 mana and discard it to return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Due to the fact that we will have to exile a total of 3 cards with the name of Say Its Name, we might end up not playing too many copies of Altarnak, as we can reanimate it with Say Its Name only once in a game, due to being too limited to 4 copies, but a 9/9 with Trample is definitely helpful, and there will also be some other cards in this deck that can help out to win the game. One of those cards is Hauntwood Shrieker, a 3-mana 3/3, and when it attacks you manifest Dread. Again, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you put one of them face down onto the battlefield as a 2/2 creature and the other card into your graveyard. Which means that the attack trigger can definitely help to fill up your graveyard with the cards that you need for Delirium, and you can also place an Altarnak onto the battlefield face down. For 2 mana you can reveal target face down permanent, and if it's a creature card you may turn it face up. So if it happens that you put an Altarnak face down onto the battlefield, you can swing with both of your creatures, and then before damage is dealt, simply activate the Shrieker to turn your face down creature up, which will be a 9/9 with Trample. When it comes to morph support for this deck, we also play Direct to the Roots, a 4-mana instant with Delirium, so it costs 2 less to cast as long as there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, and you can destroy target non-land permanent. This card will be absolute premium removal for your standard game, and is also worth having for your normal collection, as many Golgari decks want to fill up their graveyard, so Delirium shouldn't be that much of a problem for your deck. Due to the Shrieker's ability, you can play a lot more high-powered creatures that you will want to either manifest dread or reanimate when you put them into your graveyard, which is why we play as one of our reanimation spells Coiling Rebirth, a 5-mana sorcery that you can gift a card when the spell resolves to an opponent, and return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the gift was promised and the creature isn't legendary, create a token that's a copy of that creature except it's a 1/1. Currently we do see synergies with this card either with a Vein Ripper or also with a Rottenmouth Viper, so these can be more additions to this deck, even though I personally think the Delirium deck that works around with the Patchwork Beastie and also with the Alternac can be a lot of fun. Now there do have been a few cards that have been spoiled that I also would like to mention, simply for my personal Commander staple binder. So if I can get my hands on one of those cards, I will definitely put them in this binder, because I'm pretty sure that in the long run these cards are definitely worth having for your collection. The first card is going to be Nowhere to Run, a 2-mana enchantment with flash, and when it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn. So you can get rid of a lot of indestructible creatures with this flash enchantment. It will also increase your devotion, which is relevant in a lot of mono black decks. And it also has another ability: creatures your opponents control can be the target of spells and abilities as though they didn't have hexproof, and ward abilities of those creatures don't trigger. Ward has become a widely seen keyword, and not paying the ward taxes is definitely something that everybody of us wants to do. In addition to that, getting rid of hexproof is extremely powerful, as by reading this card carefully you will see that all of your opponent's creatures will kinda lose hexproof, which also means that all of your opponents can interact with each other as though those creatures didn't have hexproof. So you will increase the chances that your opponents will throw their removal at their creatures by just paying the price of 2 mana to flash this enchantment in. I personally think that Nowhere to Run is definitely worth having, and you should also keep an eye on this one. Another card that I would like for my collection is Fanatic of the Harrowing, a 4-mana 2/2, and when it enters, each player discards a card, and if you discarded a card this way, you draw a card. This is kinda an edict effect, but just for discarding cards from your hand, and a lot of Turgid players will love this card, as it also replaces itself, and it also brings a buddy with it. Another card that I would like to have for my binder is Unwanted Remake, a 1-mana instant, destroy target creature, its controller manifests dread. We don't have to talk about the fact that it isn't better as Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, simply as it destroys, and manifesting dread would also give your opponents a little bit of insight about their deck. And it also might happen that they put a very scary creature card onto the battlefield face down, and they might be having enough mana available to turn it up immediately, as the turning up is still instant speed, which might make the situation even worse for you. Though if you're playing a mono white commander, it might be helpful to have cheap interaction in your deck, and if we can agree on something, Unwanted Remake is definitely that. Alright guys, these were a few ideas of mine that I have about cards that are currently being spoiled for Duskmourn. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about these cards, and if you would like to see more spoiler reactions in a video of mine. Until then, have a good one and enjoy your games of Magic the Gathering.